Good afternoon, distinguished guests, colleagues, and partners. Welcome to Asia Clean Energy Forum 2026. Thank you for joining us for what promises to be an insightful and engaging session this afternoon. European examples of how digitization can help energy connectivity and integration. I am James Kolantaraj, Principal Energy Specialist from the Energy Sector Office of Asian Development Bank. And it's my pleasure to moderate this important session. To officially open the proceedings, it's my pleasure and privilege to invite Executive Director Bertrand Fourneau, Suite 9 at the Asian Development Bank, representing the Constituency Office for Belgium, France, Israel, Italy, Portugal, Spain, and Switzerland, to deliver the welcome remarks. ED Fourneau, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends, good afternoon and welcome to ACEF 2026. It's a pleasure for me to open this pre-forum event dedicated to European digital solutions in support of energy connectivity and integration in Asia and the Pacific. I would like first to commend the great teamwork done in the preparation of this event by the liaison officers of our 6 European embassies, and particularly the pivotal role of Carlo Liai from Italy. I also appreciate the support provided by ADB's Energy Department, present in the room and also on the stage with our moderator, James. In advance of the opening plenary of ACEF that will take place tomorrow morning, I would like to focus my remarks on the main reasons that make this session fit for purpose. First, it takes place at a moment when our DMCs are particularly exposed to the economic and social consequences of the war in the Middle East. Their dependence on imported fossil fuels has increased their vulnerability to economic shocks. Some countries may lose more than 1 point of GDP of growth this year and face up to 3% inflation above the projections made at the beginning of the year. The crisis has also a strong impact on public finance sustainability, with the mobilization of both costly tax cuts and subsidy schemes for oil and gas purchases, but also for fertilizers needed to guarantee food security. Until now, ADB has received 16 requests for budget support among our 42 borrowing countries. In the meantime, many countries have realized that they must reduce their exposure to imported fossil fuel in a medium and long-term perspective through the diversification of their energy mix. It includes renewable energies, hydropower, and nuclear. Better regional integration and the expansion of grid connectivity can also be part of the answer. Second, because ADB is well aligned to address the roots of the crisis, thanks to the adoption at the end of last year, of the review of our energy policy that is now in place until 2030. While keeping a strong focus on energy decarbonization and the fight against climate change, the key new components of this review are: first, ADB's engagement in the development of critical minerals value chains from mining to manufacturing. Second, the possibility to finance technical assistance and possible investments for nuclear energy in compliance with IAEA standards. Third, the possible support to investments reducing methane gas flaring in existing oil and gas fields, or promoting carbon capture and storage technologies. On the sidelines of this review, I can add that ADB will answer the current crisis by reopening its trade finance program for energy purchases, but we strongly expect, as Europeans, that this is temporary for fossil fuels. Third, because ADB has the capacity to expand its lending operations in the energy sector. During our recent annual meeting in Samarkand, President Kanda has announced that ADB could mobilize until $50 billion by 2035 to finance the Pan-Asia Power Grid projects. Mobilizing means that these resources will come not only from ADB, but also from our development partners, for example, the World Bank, AIIB, EBRD, and also from the private sector, encouraged by the deployment of guarantees and other innovative financial products. This initiative also covers ambitious sub-regional projects, such as the ASEAN Power Grid, with up to $10 billion commitment from ADB, or the Central Asia Energy Corridor to Europe, implemented by CAREC countries. Our strong firepower in terms of lending capacity will be complemented by ADB technical assistance grants and knowledge-sharing projects. At this stage, and to conclude, I would like to underline that the European countries, our companies and energy operators are well positioned to propose innovative technology solutions and to promote our unique model of multinational integrated grid and regulated energy market. Besides, we can also share experiences from the previous energy crisis resulting from the Russian invasion of Ukraine. On this note, I hope that this session will bring you useful insights on European digital and energy solutions, and I wish you a fruitful and pleasant 2026 ACEF week. Thank you.
Many thanks, ED Funo. It was an excellent opening remarks, welcome remarks, covering current energy crisis and ADB support, as well as the need for energy security and renewable energy. It covers everything. And with this, I have a very short opening scene-setting presentation, which I will go through. I think, this is to set the context on ADB DMC challenges, which renewable energy is not the largest issue now. They are adding up renewable energy in each and every country, but the grid integration is one of the key challenges. We are having more distributed PV, but integration of it is becoming increasingly difficult. And we are also having new flexible demand in the form of EVs, in the form of data centers, and also industries reshape to have different load curves at this stage. And storage is also scaling up in our DMCs, but the location of storage, whether it is coordinated properly at generation, distribution, and load, it need to be further studied. And regional connectivity, this region has a large potential for regional connectivity, as ED mentioned in his speech earlier, but which need to be carried out through sufficient forecasting and controls as well. And this is the real life scenario where we are already facing issues with renewable energy integration, where rooftop solar become a system operation issue, and where you can see that basically a 33 kV fault in a distribution level fault caused by a monkey can trigger the entire country for a blackout. So, causing the cascading effect. And, you can also see the utilities are requesting the rooftop solar owners to temporarily switch off the inverters in order to integrate it well. So this is already happening in some of our DMCs. So I'll get to touch on the distribution feeders are becoming more aggressive in the coming days. One is mainly on the voltage increase, which is causing reverse power flow. That's already happening in many of the feeders, and it also causes harmonics, which causes the power quality issues. And further, the network also have impacts on congestion, which reduces the renewable energy from going in, and also dispatch is also having an issue which causes the curtailment. And more these issues are becoming very common in our DMCs, not only in one but in many of the DMCs. Further, going beyond South Asia, the same digitalization challenge is emerging globally, and as we see, digitalization is not really an advanced option. It becomes a necessity for securing renewable energy integration. As you see in Vietnam, where there is already congestion and curtailment happening due to large integration of grid scale and rooftop solar integration, and where countries like Australia is tackling in a different way, where they are asking the consumers to use during the peak hours the energy freely so that it can be integrated into the grid. While the smaller grids like Pacific Islands and Maldives, they have a different challenge to meet, where they have small grids with battery energy storage, diesel, and as well as critical energy and water nexus in the same issues. And what Europe can bring a digital experience that can be adaptable, but not a copy and paste, because we need country-specific or context-specific digitalization. So the opportunities, what I see is smart grids and interconnections, which will happen because Europe has a lot of experience in cross-border operation. Visibility and data platforms is very critical. Forecasting and AI optimization will also be very, very important for DMC operations. Further than not only just visibility and data flexibility, we also need flexibility and control. Just not visibility is not enough. And cybersecurity is a key concern in most of the developing member countries. Whenever we visit the DMC counterparts, this is one of the questions normally asked. And finally, the market and regulatory design, which we need to learn from the European market, which is really open. With this, I have basically a few questions for the some of the presenters later. With this, I'm going to invite the presenter. Before that, I would like to make a point that an intelligent energy system is not defined by the technology it deploys, but how effectively we can operate, immediately, how fast we can operate in the country-specific context. That's more important. With this, now I am going to turn to the topic that is increasingly critical for cities and economies, the intersection of air quality and climate energy systems. It's my pleasure to invite Mr. Stanislas Worley, advisor for ASEAN, SUS, Air and Climate, who will share how the digital solutions are helping to bridge these domains in an integrated manner. Mr. Stanislas, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Stanislas. As you can see, I'm French with my beautiful English accent. Okay, so I will introduce you the air quality, climate and energy through digital transformation. But I will start first to explain you who we are. And what I show you here, it's 40 years ago exactly. It was Chernobyl accident. I think most of you will remember this terrible nuclear accident. We start our history with this accident. We were part of EDF, the French Electricity Board, who was developing specific modeling models, mathematical models to do simulation in case of accident. So it is our focus, it's air quality, and now it's climate change, but 40 years of experience, 30 years of experience on those topics. Who we are exactly? We are part of Suez Group. Some of you may know Suez Group. Suez Group, it's a large industrial group worldwide, mainly known for water management, water treatment, and waste management. Suez Group has developed 5 years ago a new department named Suez Air and Climate. It's where we are today. It's a bit the best of both worlds, the strength of a global group and the agility of a specialized SME as we are. One core expertise, environmental intelligence from decision-making for 5 thematic lines. We work for industry, urban and regional air quality, climate change, extreme risk. Extreme risk can be accident, like a nuclear accident, like a terrorist attack for a city. So military application also, very specific gas and component. And we have climate change, mitigation, adaptation, and renewable energy. We do, for example, wind map atlas. We are not only a consulting company, not only an IT company or software editor. We combine environmental intelligence with real operational experience. We are covering the entire value chain from diagnostic to implementation and optimization. One science, environmental intelligence, but multiple scale. Environmental challenge span multiple spatial scales from global climate dynamics to street level exposure. While all the scales are physically connected, each scale serves different stakeholder, decision, and operational needs. We start from very large scale and we do downscaling with different models. Here it's a small simulation. I wish it will start. Yes. It was before COVID. We have done a 3D digital twin of Paris city. So it's a very light digital twin showing the impact of traffic. The main issue for a large city is the traffic. Two-wheel, motorcycle, the car, the buses, and everything. The main objective of that study was to understand what is the current context in Paris, what is the impact of the traffic on air pollution, and how policymakers can improve the politics, and how, if tomorrow, for example, based on all those data, you can implement only electric buses, or you avoid any truck in the city, what will be the impact? So it's not only to see the current context, but also to improve and evaluate policy. We are supporting government and development banks throughout projects life cycle, from assessment and planning to implementation, capacity building and long-term operation. It's really to turning environmental policy into operational solution. I will go through 3 examples. We have many cases, but in 10 minutes to resume 35 years of experience is not easy. So I will be pleased to answer to any of your questions. Here it's an ongoing project in the Caire in Egypt. All the time, air and climate are linked. One atmosphere, one strategy, but multiple benefits. The most effective environmental action are those that improve air quality, also allow you to reduce emission and strengthen resilience. In Southeast Asia, we have 3 main flagship projects illustrating how environmental intelligence supports climate resilience across Asia. 3 countries, 3 scale, 1 objective, turning environmental science into operational climate environmental action. You have on the left, on the right one, the Indonesia. So it was a national scale to do forecasting application for the national country. Vietnam, we downscaling from national to local scale for Hanoi City to give them tools and knowledge to evaluate policy to reduce pollution in Hanoi City. And Wuhan in China, neighborhood scale, urban planning and climate adaptation. I will explain a bit further on that. For Wuhan city, This project illustrates how environmental modeling can directly support urban planning decision. By identifying natural ventilation corridors, we help cities improving air quality, reduce urban heat island, which is the main concern here in Southeast Asia, lower energy demand and strengthen the climate resilience. Sometimes the cheapest pollution is the one you never create. Good urban planning can prevent also for problem of air quality, airflow in the city. Hanoi City, it's an ongoing project. The idea is to do a project with the city of Hanoi to evaluate current policy of reducing air pollution. One of the key points of Hanoi, and it's in many parts in Southeast Asia, it's what we call LEZ, low emission zone, and how LEZ can improve air quality at a local scale. It's true it can improve. It's not the only decision you should take. Air quality improvement, it's small evidence for different projects. Low emission zone, it's a case, but you need to evaluate more globally the context. The Indonesian project, it was a project led by the French Met Office. It was not only about delivering a forecasting system. The objective was to transfer technology, operational procedure, and scientific expertise for BMKG. BMKG, it's an Indonesian meteorological office that allow him to operate and develop his own national forecasting system. The system was to monitor forest fire, track biomass burning emission, and anticipate regional haze episode using satellite observation and atmospheric forecast. This last slide, you will be able to retrieve it when we will share the presentation. We cannot link directly, but you can see there is two small links on it. It's to show you what kind of platform we are currently using. Digital twin, digital platform allow you to bring all the data, topographic, emission data, urbanist data to do simulation and evaluation of the air quality and climate change. I think I'm right on time. I still have 1 minute. Thank you for your attention.
Now we can open the floor for any questions anyone can have. Probably we'll have, we can allow 3-4 questions if there are. Yeah. Please introduce yourself and ask the question, please.
Yeah, I cannot hear you effectively.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Arun Kumar from Asia Research and Engagement. We work across all of Asia on decarbonization, on the net zero goals the companies are currently pursuing. One of the questions which I had, since you showed a very interesting case study of Hanoi, and since I come from India, we have a similar situation in New Delhi, which often during the winter goes towards very high, almost unbreathable situation. Now, the question is, what are some of these steps or things which, because biomass burning is almost common across Asia, wherever these things have happened. Winter cold is one of the factors which has done that. There is no linkage with the local uses of renewable energy or non-renewable energy, because while we have very extensive integration of green energy into the grid, so the key issue or key concern is that biomass. How did you address this issue of during the winter when biomass generation is very high? What are the solutions which actually has worked in Hanoi and potentially can be used across other cities of Asia? And is the digitization of data of any great help in that?
Thank you for your question. digitalization is a part. What is the key issue for us on our side? It's to work with data, what we call emission inventory. It can be traffic, it can be biomass, it can be when you want to do a transition between a coal industry to gas industry. What we need is data. So either there is existing data, not only data about emission. We do emission inventory for sure. We work with local university, local entity. We need meteorological data to understand the phenomenon of dispersion in the area and the topographic data. That means if you are in an urban area, you will need the building. You will need to understand the airflow. If you are at medium or large scale, you will need the mountains and to understand effectively the meteorological phenomena. But the work before to do the digitalization, it's to do a good emission inventory and to understand what is the objective of the category. So either we have existing database, either we do local measurement. So that means we go locally with equipment to do measurement of data and to compare also those data with existing data just to make a good statistic. All this implementation will need all the time to work on the emission inventory.
What's the time series of the data? How many years of data would require?
Depending of the project, but at minimum it's 1 year. The best is when you have 2 or 3 years. If you talk about traffic data, it's improving every year. So you need to refresh your emission inventory every year. If it's continental scale, there is existing database with raw data. You have a data every 1 or 100 kilometers. Then we took those data and we will use different mathematical models to downscaling and to understand locally the phenomenon also. So when you consider air pollution and climate, you need to start with a very large scale to understand also what we call the transboundary effect of pollution on a local scale. So large scale to small scales and different size and different kind of emission inventory.
Thank you, Stan. Basically due to time constraints, probably we may need to move to the next presenter.
Thank you.
Our next presentation moves us much deeper into the core of power system intelligence, real-time monitoring and system stability. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Francesco Comito, Area Manager, Asia Pacific Countries, SESI Consulting, who will present European experiences with VAMs and their role in enabling connectivity and integration. Over to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you, James, for your nice introduction. First of all, I would like sincerely thank the Asian Development Bank and the European constituency for inviting CESI to contribute to this session. It is really a pleasure for me to be part of this European initiative with the ASEF and to share our experience in applying the digitalization paradigm in supporting the digitalization and the interconnection in Europe. Before going into the core of the presentation, allow me to spend a few words regarding CESI. CESI is an Italian company, but with a presence worldwide in more than 80 countries. The company is divided in 3 main divisions: testing, consultancy, and solar cells for space application. In this presentation, in any case, is focused on the activity of the consultancy division. This year we celebrate the 17th anniversary of CESI. In fact, the company was established in 1956, and for a period for many years, CESI was embedded in our transmission system operator, in the Italian transmission system operator. And therefore, the deep technical specialization is in our DNA, I would say. And in this presentation, I would like to share CESI experience in the study, definition, implementation, and development of the wide area monitoring system. That is an European example of how digitalization can enhance power system performance, supporting integration and better exploitment of the renewable resources. CESI played an important role in the development of this system at European level since 2003. So, to understand why Europe needs the WAMS, the Wide Area Monitoring or Management system, we have to consider the following aspect: high system complexity and decentralization, large geographical extension of the transmission networks, dynamic phenomena between different area. When we consider area, we have to consider a situation in which there are two geographical locations in which are installed electrical equipment of different in nature. For instance, an area in which there is the prevalence of generation, and an area in which are installed in prevalence loads. When these two areas are connected, especially by long transmission line, there is the possibility that dynamic phenomena are established along the transmission grid. And in this situation, to ensure real-time situational awareness to the grid operator, it has been necessary to develop a system like the WAMS. The wide area monitoring system consists of an advanced measurement technology, information tools, and operational infrastructure. The aim of the WAMS, as it is conceived so far, is only to collect a certain amount of data, a certain type of data that are provided in real time to the operator in the control center, to allow the operator to identify critical phenomena and to identify in due time the needed measures to mitigate such phenomena. The PMU technology is based. The WAMS technology is based on the PMU. The phasors measurement unit. To simplify, let's consider the PMU like a box that is installed along the network, and this box is able to read the typical electrical value like voltage, current, and angle between voltage and current 60 times per second. In addition, all the PMU are synchronized through the GPS. All the PMU are connected to the control center, and in this way is the operator in the control center in Rome, for instance, can read this set of data of a PMU that is installed in Sicily, and can compare this data with the data collected by a PMU installed, for instance, in a remote area in Sweden. The particularity is that those data are synchronized. A specific value of current is collected in the same time, in the same moment, in those two places. And in this way, it's possible to make a comparison between the different set of data coming from different area. And this will allow the operator to identify critical situation. For instance, in this way, it's possible to identify a dynamic phenomena that is spreading from Denmark to Spanish, and in real time, and identify the needed measure to mitigate the phenomena. Therefore, the WAMS digital architecture is composed by the PMU, the phasor measurement units, high-speed communication network, tools for data analysis and visualization, and a human interface, human-machine interface in the control center that allow the operator to read the data. Now, let's have a closer look at the Italian experience. After the blackout occurred in 2003, a deep analysis of the causes of this blackout were performed, and the need of a system like the WAMS was identified. At that time, we identified the fact that it was necessary to read different data to read the same data in different locations of the transmission system of Europe in a synchronized way. So we started the installation of the PMU at the beginning in 2005 in Italy. In the beginning, we installed around 5 PMU in the most critical nodes, and nowadays we have about 500 PMU installed. Since time is running, I would like to show you the page of the WAMS system installed in Terna. Here you can see the comparison between the value that I explained before, voltage, current, angle, in different nodes of the European electrical system, and an operator in any control room can compare in real time such value. This is more in detail a situation in Italy, for instance, on the right. The number indicated here in particular represent the angle between voltage and current. When the number is green, it means that everything is fine. When the number is in yellow, it seems that it is a critical situation. In particular, you can see the connection in south of Italy on the Adriatic Sea, where there is this 28.3 angle degree. It means that this line, in this line there is a huge amount of current, but the network here is very weak. So it means that the operator has to pay particular attention in operating this line, and indicates the needs of additional transmission line that should be installed in that area. This is an example on how the data are analyzed. So let's come into the conclusion and key takeaway. So thanks to the digitalization, Thanks to the digitalization, the WAMS allows for the integration of the electrical system, especially in a complex area and large area like the European transmission system. The WAMS enables for a better exploitation of renewable resources, allow real-time visibility control, and support cross-border coordination. So the European case is a clear example on how this system can practically support the improvement of the transmission system, especially in presence of critical phenomena due to the increasing of the interconnection of renewable resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francesco, for a very detailed technical presentation. May I also probably ask any questions from anyone in the audience now?
Hello, I'm Irshad Khan. I work with GIZ in the energy sector in Islamabad. You explained very well and the critical phenomena. So can you give examples what these critical phenomena could look like? Yeah, it was repeatedly used, but maybe to understand better.
Yes.
If it's weather phenomena or if it's like...
Yeah, the phenomena of this kind are dynamic phenomena with high frequency, and is difficult to detect. Therefore, is necessary a system like the WAMS to detect this kind of phenomena. And an example in Asia could be, for instance, Vietnam. In Vietnam, you have a very skinny geography. There is a transmission line that is very long and connects two areas that are different in nature. In an area, there are mainly loads. In the other area, there are mainly generation. What happened? Those two areas could be not synchronized. There could be a situation in which the angle between current and phase in an area is not the same angle that is in the other area. Since the two areas are interconnected, we lost of synchronization of this between those areas. And if you lose synchronization, this phenomena could cause also the tripping of the circuit breaker. You are going to lose the transmission line. Therefore, you have to check, you have to monitor the difference. Mainly, this is the aim of the WAMS, to check the difference of the angle between voltage and current in an area with the angle between voltage and current in another area. When the difference of these two angles is around 90 degrees, you are going to lose the transmission system. So you need to anticipate the phenomena. With the WAMS, you can understand if the phenomena is increasing or decreasing, if this difference is going up or down, and therefore you can, the operator in the control center can identify the best measure to minimize or mitigate this situation.
If I may, you give the example in the presentation of Europe, like from all the way from Sweden, Denmark to Spain. Do you have the network in all these countries? Because if you existing network,
there is yes, in Europe there is a.
No, I mean your company, like so that you can predict this phenomena, because you need your own system, in my understanding.
No.
Predict
my company, this is a system that is owned by the TSO, not by my company. And we helped the European TSO to design the system, to install, to implement, and to develop this system. So we work for the European transmission system operator.
Thank you, Francesco. And I also may have technical questions, but I will ask you later when due to time constraints. Thank you very much. Well done. So with this, we move to the next presenter. As we strengthen the grid, we also must rethink how we manage demand flexibility and as well as market participation. To shed light on the same topic, I invite Mr. Alain Dardy, APAC Regional Director from Energy Pool, to share perspectives on energy transition, moving beyond digitization, and also towards system optimization. Mr. Alain, please, welcome you.
Okay, hi, thank you. So, hello to everybody. So obviously, first, thank you very much for VADB for the opportunity to talk today and to talk about our company and what we think is one of the bottlenecks regarding energy transition. And thank you also for the European coordination and the support of Business France in particular. So actually, I will show you a little. So regarding how digitalization can support, wow, I don't know what's happening on the slide. There is some strange fonts, but anyway, we'll do it. Regarding energy transition and digitalization, actually, James showed a very interesting slide at the beginning, and he almost made the presentation for us, I would say, because he said the bottleneck is not energy generation capacity, it's system operation. And we really think, based on our experience in Europe and in the Pacific, that it's really it. You know, I will show you a few examples, but without wanting to spoil all the conclusion, it's much easier to procure a battery than to make an energy system that works. So for that, you really need a lot of things to fall in place. So first, I think most of you, if some of you know Energy Pool, congratulations, because we are not a very big company, so I will spend a little time to introduce us. So regarding Energy Pool, so we are a French company. I don't know if we can tell by my accent, like Stanislas said at the beginning, a French company. We are based not in Paris, but in the French Alps, so very beautiful place with a lot of greeneries, and you can do mountain hiking. So in this place, the people, they really think about, it's not a cliche, I would say most people who work for a company, they really think about nature preservation, climate change, and all that. All those big questions and challenges for all of us. So we have been created in 2009. We are not very big, 300. We are in 15 countries. And we work with a lot of big partners. So I will quote one of them because since I'm based in Japan and I've been working there for 8 years for Energy Pool, and our main partner in Japan is TEPCO, so one of the biggest Japanese utilities. So we cooperate with them, but we are also mainly in France, Turkey, Ivory Coast, Japan. Those are the main places where Energy Pool is active. And we have a nice matrix over there. So don't ask me exactly how it's computed because we could go in very long conversation, but we say we save more than 2 million tons of CO2 per year through just software, digitization. It's not battery, it's not PV, it's really how you operate all those assets based on the extremely important data that Stanislas talked about, but also Francesco also. So if you don't have data, you cannot do anything, you are blind. So why digitalization? I will mostly focus today on islands because obviously we are in APAC. In APAC, you have a lot of islands. First, it's already difficult in general, but it's even more difficult on islands because on islands, you have all the difficulties you have on a major system, all concentrated into a small system, which means in Europe, for example, I'm French, so when we have too much nuclear, we send it to Germany. Don't say that too loud, but that's what's happening because they have nuclear power. And when they have a lot of wind, they send it to France. It's great. We all cooperate. We have nice interconnections. But when you're on an island, you cannot play that. You are stuck on your island and you have to balance the system by yourself. And when it's even more difficult is that France and Germany, they are huge economies. They can digitize, they can deploy a lot of fancy systems. But on a small island, like for example, we are working with Tonga, we are working with Tahiti. You are in a much more smaller system. You don't have the same means. You don't have the same technology. So it's even more challenging. And here, maybe it's a little garbled, but one of the things you have, you depend on diesel. So you have to import diesel and you are super far from everybody. And you have a high dependency on fossil fuel, I wrote it. And also you have a very challenging environment. For example, the first time I went to Tonga, I saw a new wind turbine that I never seen anywhere, because those wind turbines are specially designed to withstand typhoons. So you really have special conditions. So it's a huge challenge to do energy transition here. So here, and what is the old model and what is the new model? So the new model is complicable, but I will just tell you what it is. So in the old model, you had just one utility with diesel gensets. So it's not too difficult, quite frankly, to manage. Today, you have a utility with gensets, like yesterday. Now you have IPPs who are not utility. Maybe they will not listen to you when you tell them to dispatch or to curtail. You have other people with maybe who operate batteries. You have a lot of solar PV on the roof. Of course, you cannot control this. It's on the roof of people, on houses and companies. It's becoming extremely difficult to coordinate, and the grid is getting fragmented. So I will show you two examples who illustrate quite well all those challenges. One is in Europe. So here, I cannot name this customer, but it's a really nice island in European south. So you can see they have wind, they have solar, they have some gensets, and of course, dispatch center with a nice SCADA. And they wanted to see how they can improve penetration of renewables and how they can improve the system. So today, it's not really coordinated and not very optimized. So we made this study for them. So we made some on-site audits, recommendation. We made some digital twins and recommendations. And one very interesting output, you can see it in the lower right hand, is that today they have 20% of renewables. If you just add an EMS, so you have a better dispatch of all those assets, even with no battery, you can get to 45% of renewables penetration, just with a good EMS. EMS stands for Energy Management System. And of course, with EMS and BESS, you can go to 90%. So that was a big finding that I think it surprised us to see how much it could change things, and also these islands that I cannot name, they were really surprised. So, and it means that you can have 26 days per month with 100% renewables with the BESS and the battery, or almost 15 days with just VMS. And so that's something that we tend to think you really need to have a battery, and battery are really great and they have become super cheap, but you also need to have a good system to orchestrate all this, or else you will just drive blind all those systems. So another example, and this one I can say the name, so that's great. So it's in the Pacific, it's Tahiti. So the French Polynesia, I don't know how much you are familiar with Polynesia, French Polynesia. Maybe you are from the region, so I guess you are more familiar than me, because for me, as a standard French guy, I would say Tahiti, it's nice, Paul Gauguin going at the end of his career, painting over there, and just an island that actually, it's not one island, it's 118 islands, so it's huge. The area is bigger than Europe, of course it's mostly ocean. Out of 118 islands, you have 63 isolated distributed network on 58 islands. So you can imagine the challenge of managing this system. So it's very fragmented. They don't have much automation or much data. They have some SCADA, but it's completely siloed, completely distributed. They don't have forecasting because they didn't need it, quite frankly. They have nice hydro and diesels. And the grid code, so all the rules of how you dispatch generation, to say it otherwise, is, as in many of those islands, it still dates back to the days where you just had mostly thermal and hydro. So here you can see a little of the assets they have, even if it's garbled again, but it's okay. And the big difference here is that you have all the assets in black, they from Electricité de Tahiti, so EDT, but you have two orange, which are battery plus PV, which are IPP. Those they are independent producers. They don't have the same incentives. They have a different balance sheet and P&L. They act completely independently according to a contract. And maybe they are not super incentivized as the contract stands to stabilize the grid or to optimize it. So here you have nice pictures, and you can see those IPPs. Actually, it's agrivoltaic, so which is a recent development, which is very innovative and which is really great. So you can see the cattle benefiting from the shade of the PV. So you have a double effect, it's cool. So those two IPPs, now you have to integrate them. So before, I will not go before and after. So now you have after, there are many utilities, many operators, IPPs. So on the right, what do you have to do? Is that, of course, you need an advanced solution. You need a forward-looking model which can forecast, optimize. Of course, you have weather forecast, wind, solar generation forecast, but also you need to improve the skills of the people, because if you don't improve the skills of the people, what they will do, very often, they will ignore what the EMS tells them and just start the genset. So you also have to train the operators and the people at the dispatch center. I don't know what the time is, so James is not starting, but anyway. So now you have 3 steps. So on the left hand, you have what we have done. So first, we have done no digitalization, nothing. Even if we are a digitalization and EMS company, we have spent months talking to Tahiti and saying, okay, what is your system? What is the data? What are your contractual relationship with your IPPs? How do you manage deviations between generation that was forecasted and what's happening? What are the dashboards that you use? So we spent a lot of time on that. And now we are doing what we call instrumentation. So you have data flows and we know at least what is happening. And we are talking to them regarding, okay, now when you will add new assets, batteries or PV, how will you manage them? Who will have the contract? If something happens, who will be responsible? Because if you don't clear that, you will have an issue. I will just tell you quickly what happened in Hanover Island. There was a new PV coming on. It was a huge PV, and everybody was saying, okay, now we will have more renewables. They put it on, and then in the following week, the whole island fell into blackout. It was not a monkey this time, but it was a huge PV. And why? Because the PV was following the contract. They say, oh, on my contract it was written, do that. I did it. Say, okay, but the contract was not written well. It was written in a way that makes the grid fall completely imbalanced. So you really have to know what's happening. And when something which you didn't forecast for happens, what are the rules to say, okay, please generate a little less solar, even if you will earn a little less money, please don't put the island in a blackout. So that's what happened in the third step in the future. How do you make all those rules? Who is responsible for what? What are the penalties for deviations? So in the end, really, you will have to start with a full understanding of what's happening before the technical thing, because again, the bottleneck is not generation capacity, it's really system operations. Your system has to be flexible and scalable. So when I say flexible and scalable, is communication, because you will have to communicate with a lot of assets, a lot of PV, a lot of batteries, IPPs, and everything. And depending on this system, I can tell you it can be very easy or very complicated. And then you have really to build local capacity with operators, because in the end, they will use the system. And if they are not on board, your system will be just a fancy software somewhere and not used. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. And probably if there are any questions from the audience, we can invite. If not, probably I will be the one. So basically, you mentioned that basically the EMS can reduce the penetration of renewables. Mm-hmm. That's the first step. Yeah. Anybody to take, even though before installing batteries. So probably can you elaborate a bit, because I also used to work in similar environment in Maldives before. Oh. So we also have the same I also have the same learning, but I would like to elaborate a bit how it will work on a bigger system if this can be applied.
I think it can be applied anywhere, of course. Thank you for the question. Because if you have at this EU island, it was PV, solar, and gensets. So obviously, if you don't know what will happen with the PV and the solar, what you will do with the gensets, you will approach this cautiously. Because, of course, if you have the electricians, if there is a blackout because you misforecasted, you will be fired. But if you spend too much diesel, nothing will happen, basically. So what will you do? You will overuse the genset and you will curtail renewables. That's what happens in many places. And actually, we saw it at one of our customers. He was overspending on diesel out of cautiousness because he didn't trust the algorithm, or maybe he didn't have a good forecasting engine. So that's why just an EMS can really improve. And even if you have genset, it can improve because very often you overuse gensets, you keep a spinning reserve, which actually you don't use. So you use too much fuel. And even without PV and just with genset, with a good EMS, you can spend less fuel. So you spend less money and you put less CO2 in the atmosphere.
Thank you, Alan, for the excellent presentation and also for the pictures from the Alps.
Thank you.
So with this now, probably we will broaden the lens to regional integration and cross-border energy systems, an area where digitization can be very essential in the future, especially in our region. It is my pleasure now to invite my colleague, Jamila Amodio, Senior Energy Specialist, Asian Development Bank. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to ASEF, and it's a tough sequence after such technical presentations to go into legal, a little bit tough, but hopefully you will have a lot of interesting questions on this topic of how building intelligent systems is contributing to enabling regional power grid. I would say the main two reasons. I would give you a fact that in Europe, European consumers are saving 9 million euros thanks to optimization of the regional grid. So that is a big incentive for regional cooperation. And the second one is the ADB initiative that was mentioned by Executive Director Furno earlier, that includes Pan-Asia Power Grid Initiative focused on grid connectivity, and an Asia-Pacific Digital Highway Initiative that focuses on the digital infrastructure that enables its operation. This is the backbone. The combination of those two initiatives will create the backbone of intelligent regional grid in Asia. Both envision, under your ADB plan, envision investments, pilots, and technical assistant components. I would like to note that cybersecurity is especially notable because it's integrated into these efforts specifically, which I think is a good recognition that anything that's digital, that has data, needs to be protected. These are not standalone initiatives, and they're part of a coherent effort to deliver on ADB strategic objectives. Sorry, I spoke without noticing that it was on this. So going back to just briefly, you heard SSD Priyanta speaking about ADB energy policy. I would like to highlight that it's anchored on a clear set of strategic objectives that are aimed at transforming energy systems in Asia and the Pacific. It seeks to deliver universal energy access while accelerating a low-carbon, resilient, and regionally integrated energy system that supports inclusive economic growth. As it was mentioned in 2025, the policy was further expanded to adopt a more technology-inclusive and security-driven approach, incorporating solutions such as nuclear power, methane reduction, and critical mineral supply chains. These are the new directions to ensuring energy security, which is growing concern. Let me share with you how ADB is financing some of these projects and what has the results. First, I'll share the results. Asia's Clean Energy Financing Partnership Facility was established in 2007, has steadily contributed to these objectives through accelerating deployment of clean energy and improving access to reliable energy for consumers. The numbers speak for themselves. $350 million from this facility leveraged 11 billion in clean energy investments across 281 projects in 38 countries. These initiatives have deployed 56 clean energy technologies, expanding energy access to nearly 400,000 households. This portfolio has delivered significant impacts on energy efficiency savings, emissions reduction, and installed renewable energy capacity. And thanks to all the donors from European Union who contributed to this facility translates ADB strategy into tangible results. Now I'd like to go through a few of examples where these projects deliver. These are not only investments, they include pilots, technical assistance, collaboration on capacity, knowledge sharing, and innovation. I would like to note that digitalization is, as was mentioned previously, is the key enabler of energy transformation at different layers. And here, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I would note that these are essential tools like supervisor control and data acquisition, SCADA, energy management system that Alain just mentioned, data analytics, which requires demand forecasting for distributed energy resources, for operation of the power markets, smart meters, AMI, billing, and to enhance cybersecurity, we're also introducing cybersecurity with digital twin. So this is a table that is expansive. Feel free to come up to talk to my colleagues like James, who has been implementing several of them. The goal is to enable real-time controlled predictive planning and resilient operations across power systems. Since the core of these investments is digitalization, there is also a need for cybersecurity. And I'm glad to say that ADB started working again on cybersecurity and digital resilience. Lately, we see several technical assistance pilot projects on artificial intelligence integration, which will be also implemented since approval of the board. These projects help to harness even greater benefits once they will become integrated into the regional power grid with the regional digital architecture to enable optimization of generation resources. I would like to show you now draw the parallel with the European Union. European Green Deal, which was introduced in 2019, was instrumental in cementing the vision of the regional power grid in Europe because it legally mandated clean energy, climate neutrality by 2050, and set targets for renewable energy at 42% and 15% of interconnections by 2030, based on the principles of security, affordability of energy supply, energy efficiency, and fully integrated, interconnected, digitized grid. Both Europe and Asia face similar challenges, balancing decarbonization, reliability, integration of renewables, and secure access. And now with AI, things are even getting more complicated. So while this was instrumental, this Green Deal was instrumental in starting this effort, but I would like to say that European reform started way before, starting with the third energy package, which was introduced in 2009. The key component of it was market liberalization, foundational transition from national systems to regional vision, and enabling private sector investments. One of the key components of the third energy package was establishment of regional institutions. ACER, which was Association of Regulators, and ENTSO-E, European Energy Transmission System Operators. These institutions, they're implementing oversight, monitoring of the progress, developing objectives, and making sure that the systems are operating according to the market rules. 2013 to 2017 were the years when network codes and guidelines and standards for optimization and automation were introduced, and followed by the Clean Energy Package, which decentralized energy, enabling consumers to participate in the energy market. 2022 introduced the fast-track cross-border projects of common interest. It's a program where European Union jointly decides on the investment projects for enabling cross-border trade. And this is something that is, I think, would be relevant to the region, to Asia. 2024 to 2006 were the years of increased digitalization in cybersecurity frameworks. As you can see, there was a coordinated effort over decades to introduce common regulations, strong institutions, and infrastructure planning. And I would say that it took Europe from, it wasn't easy, it took them a hard start to coordinate among themselves, then to next state of cooperation, leading to harmonization, and now they're operating on a regional basis, the regional electricity market. Let me zoom into the EU Digitalization Energy Action Plan and the tool that is still evolving, but I think there's also things to learn and leverage. The Common European Energy Data Space is a major innovation for secure interoperable energy data sharing. Digitalization is central, it's not optional anymore, and it's embedded into system planning, operations, and market design. Its implementation starts with identification of pain points of participants. Like Alain mentioned, you start talking about what are the issues, where that data is missing, and what needs to be addressed. Following after the discussions with stakeholders, participants, they developed governance documents, identified sources of data, and this is an iterative process. It's still ongoing. I would say that the data space started with identification of 3 components: smart meters, data platforms, and smart charging electricity vehicles, and optimization building energy use. These were kind of 3 tools that they were looking at to prioritize the program. Regulators set objectives, as I mentioned, develop key indicators, and oversee the process. This is the example how Europe operates one of the largest synchronous grids, and it demonstrates that cross-border integration scale is both technically and institutionally feasible. Francesco did an excellent job of describing how wide area monitoring, which is a very technical term, is supporting cross-border coordination for system reliability to avoid blackouts due to congestion caused by renewables or by faults in different parts of Europe. But what is impressive is that this current synchronous grid is providing electricity to 400 million customers. It's a multi-country synchronized grid managed through strong institutional coordination. And I would like to emphasize the role of both European network transmission system operators of electricity, as well as national transmission system operators that oversee its operation. Providing this vision of shared regional infrastructure enables shared energy security. Now I would like to mention that I think while we definitely should not just copy and paste to Asia-European example, as James mentioned, but regional integration requires a full ecosystem that starts with a vision. And vision is supported with policies, institutions, regulations, establishment of market rules that are open for competition, infrastructure investments for generation, transmission, and now new entrants in the power system are the consumers who are entering at the grid edge. They definitely have to be secure through cybersecurity protection policies. And also, we shouldn't forget about people. People's skills, building workforce of the future is something that the industry has to integrate into the overall vision. EU investments mobilize capital for regional energy integration through, as it's shown here in the EU, it's for research, for deployment, and infrastructure. And I think that Asia's initiatives can leverage lessons learned from this approach, where combining infrastructure investment with digital innovation and coordinated policy frameworks from the beginning, integrating cybersecurity will ensure safe operation of the regional grid. Thank you. I'll get water.
Okay. Thank you, Jamila, actually, for the excellent presentation. You have some questions online. Probably I'll go with that first. What is the inter-utility or operator data sharing mechanism that has been used in Europe? I think you touched in the slides. Probably you can just mention again.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, so the seeds, the tool that they're developing is building on common data. And this is the biggest challenge of identifying where the data comes from. It's the multi-year effort to gather understanding of the sources of data. And in 2022, when Europe started, they had only 51% of smart meters among the consumers. And I think having a vision where we bring all the stakeholders together to identify the sources, the issues the issues that need to be addressed, the data sources, and the vision to discuss how it can be stuck. The Europe has also European stack, which is part of this is the part of the European data stack that is a bigger program for data sharing. Something like that would need to be discussed at least among the stakeholders.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations. You have one more question. How did the European countries handle the situation what most of the South Asian countries is facing now with the increase in the renewable energy system? How they introduce flexibility?
So this is a good question. I think Francesco would be a great also would have a good answer. The renewables, when they introduced at large scale, they need to be addressed with baseload somewhere else. So Europe came up with the idea of spreading the network to enable flexibility, balancing from neighboring countries. And diversification of energy sources is the best solution to addressing renewable flexibility issues.
So adding to that, basically European Union had, as you rightly mentioned, the synchronized connections are becoming common in Europe, which is not common in most of our interconnections, which are all HVDCs, which also allows seamless transfer of power from one to the other countries. So that's with this. If there are any last question from the audience, yes, please.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask, what is the best capacity for diversification for the grid, optimal capacity?
I don't know if optimal capacity for diversification. I think there needs to be like an analysis of generation that's currently available, the demand growth, and then from there on, then there would be system modeling involved to determine what would be the most capacity. Is that the question you're asking, or you had something else in mind?
For integration of the renewable energy, to what extent renewable energy can be integrated to the grid, because somehow it seems to be challenging for 100% to be on renewable energy. But what's your experience, and what's the best experience for integration of the renewable energy? To what extent?
I would say, I think now the new trend is to develop digital twins, where they're looking at, thank you. They're looking at digital twins where they can look at what is available on the ground and what options they exist. And that's the most, I think, practical way to look at it, rather than, putting in renewables into the grid and then determining whether it works or not.
So, and I also like to, elaborate probably. You touched on, consumers are becoming critical. consumers in Europe become prosumers earlier. Now we call they are becoming flexumers because they are providing batteries to the grid in the peak hours from EVs, from other sources. So that's where the integration of renewable energy digitization helps to empower the consumers at the end. So that's the final goal. With this, I would like to thank Jamila for the excellent presentation and also drinking a lot of water. And our final presentation, that's the last but not least, how space-based technologies are supporting energy operations on the ground. Let me join in welcoming ADB Sound Digital Technology Specialist, Mr. Yves Barthelemy. Over to you.
Good afternoon, magandang hapon. This is one of the only words I know in Tagalog, but I will do better next time. So thanks a lot for inviting me today, dear colleagues, European constituency. So this is very nice. So my name is Yves Barthelemy. I am working in what we call the digital sector, which is a brand new sector. I mean, brand new already 1 year, but digital sector. And I'm also the focal point for the European Space Agency. And I will talk today a bit more about how Earth observation can support, and I hope could support even better energy sector in the region. So maybe a few words about the partnership. So ESA and ADB have been partnering for a long time now, at least 15 years. And the objective is rather, in a way, simple, but quite ambitious. It's really around mainstreaming Earth observation technologies into ADB operational processes and development finance, which in a way can mean many different things, but let's say that it's really to make sure that ADB is using at its best of its possibilities Earth observation from satellite mostly. So collaboration has initiated in 2010. And since then, more than 50 projects have been supported by this partnership in 30 countries and many different sectors, multi-sectoral, even if at the beginning, maybe more naturally, it was supporting some projects in the agriculture domain, water domain, urban domain, disasters, of course. It is now also, and since a few years, supporting a bit more energy sector, health sector also, transport, and we are just starting. So few slides on ESA, what is European Space Agency. So it's been created in 1975, so 50 years ago, 23 member states for the peaceful use of space benefiting all. HQ in Paris. And a budget which is around 8.3 billion this year. So it seems it would be around 15 euros per European citizen. So a cinema ticket. So the 20 member states, but I'm not sure that we can really see them because they are written in white. Oh no, okay, we can see them now, sorry. For the sake really of those interested a bit more about the member states. I think it's also important to mention that they are associate members and cooperation agreements, for example, also with Canada. ESA is doing a lot of things. We are sending astronauts, we are sending rockets, we're working on a global positioning with Galileo and so many different things. But the partnership, I would say, even if we are always, of course, open to any discussions, and the new space is also bringing new ideas. But it's really, the partnership is really around more Earth observation, but it's good because it's at least 30% of ESA budget. So we are quite active in this field. So yes, we are facing a very complex and a changing world. But we could say thanks to many things, but thanks to Earth observation at least, we can now monitor a bit better the planet with many different type of sensors, Earth observation sensors from satellites. Every time I mention Earth observation from satellites, also because in a way a drone can also observe the Earth, but from satellite it means that you observe it from a bit beyond. Yes, so today's satellites give us the opportunity to do more than before, to forecast weather, to map resources, to monitor changes, work on anticipate disasters, and most importantly also, and it's been also said before, support effective policy making for a more sustainable future. But it also brings more opportunities for business and economies. Maybe you are familiar with a very exciting, I would say, program, which is called Copernicus. And some of you also, I was happy to see on the slides that in a way it was already mentioned, like with the CAMS, Copernicus atmospheric monitoring system. So here, I will not detail, but what it means is that you have a lot of satellites, a constellation of satellites, which operate in many different type which monitor many different things, which have been launched with a lot of, which makes all of these Sentinel-1 to 6, they all have some redundant satellites, more than one. So it's a huge constellation. So you can do many different things with them, from optical to radar to atmospheric monitoring. And it's not only about data, it's really around massive data sets, 300 terabytes and maybe more, distributed daily per day. And so far, I would say so good, full and free and open access to all, which means that you can really develop and use them for many different usage. So what can we do with these satellites? We can see how we can monitor a certain number of hazards, from floods, drought that can affect many of your systems, any type of infrastructure and population. Heat these days, and in the coming centuries, I guess, it will be also a very big issue, and satellites can help monitor this on a quite frequent basis. So after there are different scales and plenty of other issues, but we can do many things. Geohazards, which is also very important, where you can monitor how the Earth is displacing, the very tiny and the millimetric displacements, which is also very important, like in a city also like Manila, where we are now, where you have a lot of displacements. And for example, around Manila, a lot of the ground is sinking, so you have to monitor that. And I could go on and on. It's important also because you can monitor the demand or the exposure in some other cases, but maybe here today it's more around the demand. Here it's an animation that shows that you can now very often, so in that case here, this is what we call the world settlement footprint. Every 6 months, you can monitor the changes in urban expansion. So here, this is an example I got just from in Africa, but it's available globally. You can monitor clean energy resource assessment. So not only the demand, but also the resources, from solar irradiance, snow water equivalent, which is also key to many of the water energy infrastructure, wind, biomass potential. So all of these can be also monitored from satellites. And I'm also talking under the sharp eye of my colleagues from energy emerging area. We are using already a lot of these data sets in some projects. Here, don't try to read all of them, but I think it's really on the left you have the Earth observation, in a way, capabilities and how it can relate to any specific renewable energy. So here we have a marine wind, for example, in blue, and you can monitor from space also offshore wind speed, direction. And when it comes to hydrology, biomass, you can measure also a lot soil moisture, precipitation, and many more. Earth observation and project cycle. So project cycle, not only the ADB project cycle, but I would say that it's already used since many years now, Earth observation at different phases of the project, from the very early concept design, and then once a project is implemented, then monitored, and finally evaluated also. So it's really used during all different phases. Here, well, I was the last one to speak, so of course, a bit less time maybe, or I have to rush a bit. But few cases, I will not go into a lot of details, but for example, a collaboration between ESA and ADB was on a specific use case in Armenia for the production of the National Wind Atlas. So integrating a multi-data into and supporting the creation of this one. And still in Armenia also, and more on a rooftop solar potential, and how you can also derive this type of information so that you can also add that information to your energy mix, and identify some new opportunities. So it's not only one type of satellite here, but it's many different type of information coming from different satellites with different type of analytics, which are used to derive these. In Papua New Guinea, but it could be the case in many other places, many other countries. So here it was more around identification of the demand, so understanding where people live, how remote areas are lacking potentially grids, and this is another project that was supported within the framework of the partnership. I think it's important to mention also, so of course it's a bit maybe different from what we saw before, but in a way it's also very connected. It's how exposed and how vulnerable sometimes your network can be exposed. And here this is a study or a project in Bangladesh where we can, when we derive how exposed the energy network is to flood. And so this is a kind of a first scanning, a first screening, so that you can also, at different phases maybe of the project, in the design, that you can also understand where to plan better and how to plan better. So from some of my colleagues working also with the IEA, International Energy Agency, I know that these days some very relevant and interesting projects are going on, which is more on the solar forecasting, so that you can also increase the temporal and the spatial resolution of the solar forecasting for a better prediction. If you are interested, I don't have much details on this project, but Solar Bench will be also is an interesting initiative where most of it's a global initiative with Hong Kong University, and there will be the possibility also to increase the accuracy of these predictive models using some local data sets. So if you are interested, I can also dig a bit more with my colleagues. When we talk about maybe few trends, and it's been mentioned also several times today with the digital twins. So ESA is working on digital twins. Digital twins can mean many different things, or at least it's always to try to understand what could happen, what are the scenarios. I would say that you have different scales also. Some of them are very localized and some are a bit more potentially regional. And you can have a look at some of the initiatives that goes in that field with the Digital Destination Earth project initiative funded by European Union and implemented also in partnership with ESA. I think this is all for me. Yes, yes.
Thank you,
yes.
Bartholomew. You have a question.
That's all.
So one of the questions are actually is cloud observation data or the ESA data shared to European utilities for solar generation forecasting?
Yes, so here today, I mean, I'm really focusing with a bit of my hat with ESA. So I mentioned more ESA, and all of these data sets are already provided to anyone, not only to European, to members, not only to European countries, but also to globally. So in Asia Pacific, you can already, and already a lot of projects are using them operationally for a certain number of use cases, I would say. Yes, Mr. Salim, a question?
Good morning.
Excuse me.
I'm Sachin Rawat from India, and my question was also related to forecasting. You mentioned quite a bit. You mentioned how solar can be forecasted, and I saw there was something on how the ice and how it is equivalent to the water. You could forecast that, and you also mentioned long-term forecasting of the biomass. But other than solar and ice melting, are there any other ways in which the satellite data can be used to forecast the energy demand or the energy supply for the short term, say 1 day ahead or half a day ahead, for real time or contingency, for short term forecasting?
So I would say that here, I mean, satellite is one part of the equation. It's always combined with other, or it's better combined with other source of information. When you say real time, you know that satellites, but we have new satellites now, not only from the European Space Agency. The issue is more the revisit time, how frequently you can have an information on the same location. So if you are really talking about real time, then it means that you need to have one satellite just looking at your, okay, which exists also. So I would say that here it's really a combination of different type of, and you would use also sensor data combined with Earth observation, Earth observation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Any last one? Okay, so basically, Bartholomew, can I also give me an example of a real-time, operation, in energy sector, not just forecasting, but which ESA or observatory supported?
Real time is where the gold objective, but it depends what you mean by real time. If real time is just now, it's of course always a bit challenging because you are not over the same spot every time. Now, having said that, it depends also the scale of what you want to observe, and if you have we have meteorological satellites which are pointing on a continuous basis. They are a bit further, 20,000 more plus kilometer. So it means that at a regional scale, you can get access to better forecasting, yes. But the idea, I think, with the forecasting is really to combine these cameras watching toward the sky and then observation from the skies and to derive some kind of real-time forecasting for this. Yeah.
Any last question, please? No. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for the excellent presentation. And thank you to all our speakers for their insightful and highly relevant contributions. What clearly emerges is the intelligent systems are not a distant vision. They're already in place and are being scaled. The opportunity now is to refine and adapt this and how we can adapt to our situation. So that's more important. With this, to formally close the session, it's my pleasure and privilege to welcome alternate Executive Director, Ms. Ludwine Halbrecht, Student 9 at the Asian Development Bank, representing the constituency office for Belgium, France, Israel, Italy, Portugal, Spain, and Switzerland, to deliver the closing remarks, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. As we close this side event on European solutions for energy connectivity and integration, I would like to warmly thank our speakers, our moderator, James Colantara, our embassy liaison officers, the energy department, and all colleagues and participants who made today possible. Today's discussions highlighted a message that I found particularly important. When we speak about the energy transition, we often focus on generation capacity, transmission infrastructure, and investment needs, all of which are essential, of course. But today's discussions reminded us that digitalization is no longer just a supporting technology. It is becoming the operating system of the clean energy transition. What matters most is this: connectivity is only the beginning. True integration comes next. And achieving that integration requires more than physical interconnections. The European experience shared today clearly shows that successful regional integration depends not only on infrastructure, but also on institutions, standards, cooperation mechanisms, market arrangements, innovation, and digital capabilities that allow systems to function as one. This message is highly relevant for Asia and the Pacific. The ambition to strengthen regional energy connectivity, including through initiatives such as the Asian Power Grid and the broader Pan-Asia Power Grid vision, will require not only investment in infrastructure, but also investment in knowledge, data, massive data, as Yves Barthélemy mentioned, digital capabilities, and institutional capacity. This is where ADB has an important role to play. Beyond financing, ADB can support countries in strengthening regulatory frameworks, building technical expertise, and fostering the regional cooperation arrangements that are necessary for successful and sustainable energy integration. I encourage all participants to continue these conversations throughout ASEF, to build new partnerships and to explore concrete opportunities for cooperation. Ultimately, the future of energy systems will not be defined by what we build alone, but by how intelligently we connect, operate, and manage them. Maraming salamat. Thank you once again to all speakers and participants, and I wish you a very successful and productive ASEF 2026.
Thank you very much, AD. And I would like to thank our liaison officers, and also Carlo in coordinating this event very successfully, and also for the leadership of ED and AD for successfully hosting this. And with this, I will request the speakers to stand here for a final photo with ED and AD. Thank you.